I didn't mean to say everybody. I meant to say everybody. But as you can see, I'm a little discombobulated here. But you're seeing this behind the scenes look at this thing that we do called Emil and Dan's Takeout. My takes on all things considerable. Welcome to this show. Professor Dan will be joining me in a second. We'll talk about the news of the day, a lot of different things out there that are worth talking about. I want to tell you about my show coming up. I'm doing a little excerpt. If you want to go see an excerpt, I'm at the San Francisco Marsh next Monday. Next Monday, this coming Monday, I'm doing like a 20-minute thing about the holidays. And if you're Jewish or Muslim, don't worry, I take care of you. I make it inclusive. I'll talk about you too. I'll talk about how I want to include you. I talk about my Christmas trees in my life. I talk about the gift I got this Christmas has made me realize the importance of this holiday. So don't miss it at the Marsh. It's at 10. Let's see. Hold on a second here. It's at 1062 Valencia Street in San Francisco. I know that. Why'd I have to dip down and disappear for a second? 1062 Valencia Street, The Marsh in San Francisco. Go to themarsh.org. It's part of the Monday Night Marsh series, just a one time. You like these things where I do these pop ups, and who knows who sees them, if anyone sees them. A few people see the reels, but I do these live pop ups, these storytelling pop ups, and I invite you to join. They do charge for this at the Monday Night Marsh. Go to themarsh.org. But see me live. That's sort of the fun of it. We'll have a little Christmas gathering. That's this Monday, 7 p.m., Monday Night Marsh. Emil talks about Christmas stories. And then, wait, I'm doing something in January and doing something in February in San Francisco. And that will be a kind of a special pricing thing at the playground, the San Francisco Playground Group. They're doing a thing showing my show 69, a variation. And then I'm doing just my stand-up. They're letting me do my stand-up. So check it out at SF Playground. Go to amok.com for more. And so now I think I should just talk about the things that are bothering me in the news. And I guess Venezuela, right? That's the biggest thing right now, because I don't know why we're involved in this thing. And I'm going to ask Dan Gonzalez to come up. We're going to talk about some other things. We're going to talk about Kilmore Abrego Garcia. He's free, finally. Talk about that trial of the Thai guy. It started in San Francisco. The Stop Asian Hate poster child. Real, I mean, I don't mean that as an insult. He's the man who got people enraged about what was happening during COVID, the violence toward Asian Americans. So we'll talk about that. Talk about stuff about SCOTUS, affordability, the Epstein files. The pictures were released, or some pictures were released today. Does it matter? Do we need them? We'll talk about all that with Professor Daniel Phil Gonzalez. And let's bring him on. He's my friend, Professor Emeritus, San Francisco State University, Professor Emeritus, Asian American Studies, College of Ethnic Studies, San Francisco State University. Let's just get the name out there. Hi, Dan.
Hi. Good afternoon.
Welcome
it must
to the
be
program.
Friday because I'm looking at Emil and Dan.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Emil,
I have you come here because you are so well rounded in your observations of the world, your perspective of the world, but you also have a legal degree. And one thing that we did not get into last week, that happened last week, is the DOJ says it was not going to take into account data to prove discrimination, making it harder to prove discrimination cases. And the principle that they used, that they went after, was this idea of disparate impact. And disparate impact is a phrase that means, you can after a law or after something happens, after a law happens, if and the law is about something else, but if it shows some kind of racial inequality, like fewer Asians than we expected or more Asians impacted, you can't use data to then sue to have that law overturned. So that's my understanding. Tell me about disparate impact and why this thing last week that the DOJ announced it was going to throw out all that data that people would use to try to prove their cases. Tell me what disparate impact is all about.
Disparate impact is a major element of the Title VII material in civil rights, and it's something that allows individuals, to sue when unintentional consequences occur.
Unintentional. That's the key word, right? If racism comes out of something,
that's how they're playing this. They're saying that these are just incidental results. So there may be an adverse result from a piece of legislation or from a policy that the government is acting on in whatever respect, right? Whatever agency, and that this allows people to show that there's an unfair result.
Yeah.
Okay. That's disparate impact. And so there's two things that they're doing. Now, you should also understand, everybody should understand, this stuff is not being passed by Congress. This is another executive order. So let's put it in context, right? The executive orders, first of all, Republicans were criticizing the hell out of Obama, if you'll recall.
Oh, yeah.
Who couldn't get anything done because Congress was the animal of no. It was as though it was created by the gods as the animal of no. And they negated everything. They denied everything. And so that caused Obama to rely on executive orders. But if you look at the nature of his executive orders, it was to further, right, the liberal, elements of the Constitution, such as equal protection under the law, under the 14th Amendment, and especially to look at the application of due process around immigration issues. Now, remember, he was criticized, right, as being the deporter in chief. And so for in several months now, if you compare Obama's record and Biden's record of deportations, their deportation rate has exceeded, right, the current Trump deportation rates month to month. Okay, so he's a failure, right? Sometimes he gets close, to surpassing the Biden record, right? But not the Obama record.
Right.
And
Obama deported.
Due process. He followed the freaking law. That's the difference. So what they're now doing is using executive orders to do hundreds of things, literally hundreds of effects. Okay. And one of the most recent ones was Executive Order 14281, if my recollection is accurate. And that says specifically that disparate impact shall no longer be recognized as a legitimate way to sue, even if you've been adversely affected by some governmental action under the color of law. Okay, so they're also saying that we're no longer going to keep data on that. And this is the same practice that they use, right, to wipe out affirmative action programs, to wipe out DEI programs. We're not going to collect data on that. In California, if you'll remember, Proposition 209, remember that?
Right.
This anti-affirmative action proposition from, what was that, the mid-90s, right?
95, 96,
around there. 94, 95, like that, maybe as late as 96, 97, but it was during those 2-year, government voting cycles. And what it said was affirmative action is unconstitutional, and so we're not going to allow people to keep track of issues regarding gender and race and ethnicity. Okay, we're not going to allow that anymore.
Yeah.
And that in and of itself was unconstitutional. So they were saying that the past practice of keeping records about uh, how many people, let's say a private, even a private industry or government agency, right,
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
hiring, and then looking at what that relationship is to the local population. So if there's a whole lot of Asian Americans, let's say Chinese Americans in a given area, but in certain private sector jobs, there's an underrepresentation of Chinese Americans, that could be cause to investigate. Okay,
Right.
now
Right. I mean, but it's
what
harder.
they're
It's
saying is
harder if
now
there's no
we're not going
data.
to keep that data.
Yeah.
And so the California law was struck down in great portion as unconstitutional in and of itself, even though it was claiming, right, that the previous practices were unconstitutional.
All right.
We
But
now have at the
yeah.
federal level the same thing. They're trying to make unconstitutional the keeping of records that could be the basis for disparate impact claims.
All right.
That's it.
But the upshot is, if you wanted to sue, it's harder. It's going to be harder than ever because not only is there no data being kept, but you can't use data that you have to prove
That's right.
discrimination.
Yeah. Well, my reading is that they're just closing off disparate impact as a cause of action. They're just saying we're not that doesn't exist. They're saying outright that it's unconstitutional.
Right.
That the Executive Order 14281 is titled "Restoring Equality of Opportunity and Meritocracy." Remember that?
Yeah. I
That's
mean, because I mean, what they're saying though is that the intent of the law was not to discriminate. So if you're discriminated against, hey, tough luck. I mean, that happens. I guess is that what they're saying?
they're saying that yes, the intent of the law was not to discriminate, and so if you are looking for data, right, that might indicate that there's a difference between the way one group is treated and another group is treated, and it has something to do with governmental policy or law, right? That we're not going to recognize that anymore. It's as simple as that. We're just
And
not
you
going to
can't
recognize
sue.
it anymore.
And you can't sue.
Yeah, that's it.
So,
And
so
so they're saying there's not going to be data available, and we're not going to recognize disparate impact. Now, they also, according to one of the lawfare uh, sites that I consult, right, it doesn't outright do away with the right to sue. So this is really confusing.
you
They
can
say
sue,
that
but you don't have evidence.
yes. Well, no, they also say that these letters allow individuals to pursue their disparate impact claims directly in federal court, even though the EEOC will no longer investigate or litigate them. So you can do it on your own. Okay, you can file
Yeah.
suit on your. That means you got to get a lawyer. That means you got to put up money, right? Unless you get somebody that's willing to act pro bono, right?
Right. So you're going to need a specialist who knows how to fight a
yes,
war with a sharpened popsicle stick.
yeah,
I mean, because what they're doing is they are hampering the ability to sue on the basis of race or on the basis of discrimination using data, using information that the state no longer collects or the
yeah,
government no longer collects.
yeah.
And now you're going to present data. I mean, or
Well,
you're
see,
going
but
to,
here's
what
the
evidence?
problem.
What's your evidence?
Yeah, but they also say that you can still file individual lawsuits based on disparate treatment. Well, and so they're saying, okay, disparate impact is something happens that seems unfair, okay, but it wasn't necessarily intended. All right, it's an unintended consequence. All right.
Yeah.
On the other hand, there are those circumstances where you might be able to prove that there was a direct intent to discriminate. We do not prohibit you from bringing those kinds of lawsuits. That's what they're saying. So if you can prove that. So they're making a difference between intentionality and unintentionality, right? But the same result comes from what? You don't have the data to be able to prove either. There it is.
Yeah.
So
So
you're telling me that, well, you can still sue, okay, but they're locking down the data. That means that you're going to have to do that investigation on your own. You're going to have to find that stuff out on your own. So it's not just hiring a lawyer to fight the case. You got to hire, a detective,
yeah.
okay, a law firm with detectives and other, let's say, computer based, right,
Mm.
sleuths to find out this information, and
Yeah,
that's what you're going to have to do.
but the bottom line is, if you, I mean, if it was hard to sue before, now
It,
it's even harder.
it actually makes it nearly impossible, frankly, from a practical perspective. From normal people, it makes it impossible. Now, class action suits are possible, okay,
Mhm.
and the advantage of class action suit is that you have multiple plaintiffs, right,
Yeah,
with same claims, right, of discrimination, right,
yeah.
and without regard to intentionality and all the rest of that stuff, but you share the burden of the costs, okay, and in big issues like this, okay, there are law firms, or there used to be, there are fewer
Right.
now, but there are law
Well, if
firms
they
that will
haven't been
take them
bought,
on and do that pro bono or at a discounted rate.
if they haven't been bought out by Trump, right?
That,
I
well,
mean that.
that's why I say there's fewer now.
Yeah.
Okay, you know,
I mean, the attacks on, or the capitulation of law firms to Donald Trump at the beginning of the year means, who's going to sue for discrimination when it's like the least popular issue in the Trump administration, and he's paying you off, or he's asking you to be his lawyer and asking you to capitulate, and that's what we saw the first 11 months. So.
well, you also see that the bodies that were designed specifically
Mhm.
to share the burden of the public, right, fighting against discrimination, particularly on a mass level, right, large
Yeah.
scale level, is the EEOC, right?
Right.
And guess what? The EEOC, like comparatively, I'd say EPA, have
Hmm.
scaled back their commitment, right, to
Hmm.
fighting for these rights. So the
Right.
EPA is cutting back so much stuff; it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
They're allowing fertilizers with chemicals that are dangerous, right? Known to be dangerous, right? They're allowing, the most recent change in policy was formaldehyde. They're,
Right.
they're not going to allow formaldehyde to be used in higher quantities. And so they're saying that the amount of formaldehyde in the air that's produced by a myriad of products, right?
Hmm.
Particularly processed wood products, right? Like, and those kinds of things, rugs, the kind of
Yeah.
things that everybody puts in large quantities inside your house, right?
Yeah.
Produce a lot of formaldehyde, you
You're
know,
talking about off gassing,
off
which is
gassing,
which is
and
something
it's
I've been accused of. I've been accused of off gassing.
carcinogenic. Yeah, yeah, and it's not just, it's not just the noise.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, Dan. I mean, when I saw that about disparate impact, I said, "Oh my God." In the old days, I mean, there have been times when I would say, "Oh, am I going to be litigious? Am I going to sue for my rights here on any number of things, employment, And I did not, because I wanted a career. I did not want to be known as the suing guy. I wanted to be made right, made whole. Sometimes it was a contractual thing. It was not necessarily a civil rights
Discrimination.
case, but
Yeah,
you could
well,
have
yeah.
made it. You could have made it into a civil rights case. My point is, now there's just no way you can. Well, you can sue, but it's now, if it was maybe a 10% chance of you winning a case, or maybe a 20 or 30% chance in the old days, it's probably less than 1% now,
Well,
right?
even if you had a contract breach, right, you could still sue. You got a contract, all right. But
Yeah.
see, the problem is people under these circumstances don't have a contract. You don't expect to be discriminated against, do you? You
No.
might. I guess I could be clever, really clever about it, and say, okay, I know these guys discriminate, so I'm going to go there and I'm going to work there, and then as soon as they discriminate against me, I'm going to slam them. Okay, with it, I could set it up. Okay, but that's the same kind of thing that they said about women when women were allowed to sue their spouses or their partners for abuse. Okay,
Mhm.
when that started in the 1970s, they said, "Oh, women are just going to turn around and sue the hell out of everybody. They're going to sue out of their, they're not even married, and all the rest of that stuff." The Lee Marvin case, right? They're not even married, so they're going to sue like crazy, and they're going to abuse that. That's where they're going to get their power. They're going to ruin men's lives, right?
Yeah.
That did that happen? I think it might have happened on an individual basis, but it certainly did not happen on a crowd basis the way that
Yeah.
people were alleging it would.
Well, now with this law or this stance by the government, you probably see fewer discrimination claims.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Okay,
Yeah.
how what are you going to base it on if they're locking up the data? They're whatever data is available, they're locking up, and they're not going to collect any more data.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So they
so the
said,
only
yeah.
way that you could possibly fight is if you are able over time to collect data that presents a strong case, and you're not
Yeah.
going to get any help from any federal agencies. So you're going to have a really tight case to go forward. And so, even though you have a good case, a valid case, right, on the facts and the law, who are you going to get that's going to represent you, because of the likelihood that it's going to, is there a probability that you could win? There
Yeah.
it is.
This was the big turnoff to me about justice, that if you fight for discrimination and you are, it's the hill you die on. It is the hill you die on.
Well,
Or I mean, or
it's
in terms of your career, not maybe not your physical biological life, but is the hill that you kill your career, and then you have
well,
to decide.
even if you don't sue, even if
Yeah.
you just make a claim against a person who might be trying to achieve higher office, right,
Yeah.
or somebody who's nominated to, let's say, the Supreme Court of the United States,
Hmm.
and you come forward with credible claims of sexual misconduct, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Geez, does that ever happen? And it's interesting that you choose the name Hill,
Yeah.
or the
Well,
word Hill,
yeah.
okay?
Anita
Because
Hill.
there's one of the justices who's still there now, and
Yeah.
essentially, I think, isn't he the longest serving justice now?
I think now he is. I think
Yeah,
now he
I
is.
think he is now. Uh,
And
and he there were all kind of stories about him, and
yeah.
people chose to believe him.
And
Once
so
again, a Republican nominee, and a heavy and ardent Trump supporter.
now I bring this up about disparate impact because it's all part of the rollback. I mean,
Yeah, yes, it is.
people
It's just
talk
another
about what's
area.
happening. Yeah, they talk about what's happening, executive power, superseding or just essentially trumping the legislative branch, and that's one way of looking at what's happening now in our society to our government. But for people of color, it really is the massive rollback of civil
Oh yeah,
rights, the massive rollback,
but
and
okay. The sad part is that people still don't want to identify the fact that all of this stuff is racially motivated,
yeah.
and that major elements of the Trump administration, on a personal and professional basis, are institutional basis, are racist. They don't want to accept that.
Well, Dan, it's funny because I see the mainstream, and it's like the reluctance of the media at first to even want to call Donald Trump a liar. Now more
Yes,
people loosened up
yes.
and say, yeah, he's lying. Yeah, we can assume he's not telling the truth. We just have to, every time he opens his mouth, we have to assume it's a lie. We can't take him for his word. We always have to verify. I mean, it takes a while for even what seems obvious to all for it to sink in and for the mainstream media to embrace it. I see this as this rollback, this reversal, whatever you want to call it, the regressive state of America as being really the most racist and anti-civil rights. I mean, we're undoing civil rights, and then I mean, how much there wasn't much coverage on disparate impact. It was like, oh, by the way, we're not going to do this. I mean,
Well,
not
I
a whole
think,
lot of coverage. It
well,
got
why do you think that happened? Why do you think it didn't get enough attention?
well, there's all these other issues, Epstein, the Venezuela. I mean, all of
All of
which
the other
are
stuff that you have
distractions.
that we're supposed to talk about.
Yeah,
Everything else that we're supposed to talk about.
I mean, all of it is, but the fact that it's racial, I think it's because people are just getting around to the idea. It's slow. The mainstream and society is slow to realize that, oh, what we're seeing on the part of Trump is really all racially motivated, and people keep saying, "Oh, Emil, they're talking race again. That you're wrong," but it's there. It's
look,
there. I
look,
mean,
just the things that he said about Somalis
yeah,
and
yeah,
his revival of shithole countries, right?
yeah.
And that and then that the Republicans don't say anything about they what did the Speaker of the House say? Well, I wouldn't use that language. Well, what the hell does that mean?
Hey,
Okay,
some
I,
people are
that
virtuous and
means that he has the same values. He just
yeah,
wouldn't use that language. Well,
right.
what the hell, folks?
Yeah,
Come on,
yeah.
you know.
Well,
So
I mean,
if it's
this is
happening to
the
black people or people of African descent, then Latinos shouldn't care, right?
yeah,
Okay, but now
yeah,
it's happened to Latinos and people of African descent and people from Africa. So
yeah,
should Asians care? Okay, well, now it's happened to Asians.
yeah.
Okay, and veterans, right? Like Mr. Park got sent back to South Korea, right?
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
and Christine Nome was right there in on the floor of Congress saying, well, if they entered illegally at any time, right, they're subject to enforcement of the law. That's what they're saying.
right.
That's
And
exactly
look,
what they're saying. And
even if they admitted they were wrong, it's one of those. Well, mistakes were made. We're not perfect.
yeah,
Mistakes.
but
I
what are
mean,
they doing about correcting the mistake? Are they going to fly them back for free? Okay. Now
yeah,
let's get to the Garcia case, right?
yeah. Kilmar, Abrego, Garcia released, and he's talking. He says, "Look, I'm not giving up. I'm going to continue the fight. America is a land of the rule of law. I believe in laws. I'm sure someone told him to say that, but he believes it. He's free. But what happens to Kilmar Abrego Garcia? There's a lot of these little reversals happening. It's not a full reversal yet on Kilmar Abrego Garcia because they're still going to go after him. But what do you make of Kilmar Abrego Garcia?
Well, uh, there's some details that I tried to look up before we came on, and it's
Mhm.
about the deal that he made because
Right.
he made a deal, right? That
Yeah.
he will cop to being illegally present and getting deported if he could be sent to Costa Rica, right? And so that's still there. That's still there. He's going to be able to agree to that. And the government still pursues an effort to deport him to different African nations. Right? They're trying to get
Yeah.
him to Uganda. As I mean, I never even was considering researching Eswatini.
Yeah. Well, the thing
What?
is, well, these all it's all punitive when you get sent to a country that's not your ancestral home,
And it's
not your
already been
point of
done.
origin.
It's
It's
already
just
been done. There's several Latinos, people of Central American ancestry, that
right,
have been sent to Africa.
right,
So,
and
and there's some Asians. There's some Asians that are being considered to be sent to Africa as well.
right, and all I know is that it's number one, it's punitive. Number two, I know it's like maybe it's I just can't see how it could be anything but considered an inhumane action to strand
Well,
someone. It's almost vengeance, right? You come into America illegally or what we deem illegal, we're going to send you somewhere else like you never thought. It's a very Trumpy kind of thing.
underlying institutional and public or cultural racism.
Hmm.
Underlying all of that is the dehumanization of people.
Yeah.
So it makes it reasonable to treat people in an inhumane manner when you consider them less than human in the first place. And
Right.
that's really part of what we're all about in American society is uh, rather than saying simply white people made this country great, therefore we get to make all the rules, they have to also say you people should be subordinate. You should be grateful just to be here if we allow you to be here, right? Because you're not as good as we are.
Well, there's that superiority factor, right?
Well, that's we call it supremacy,
Yeah,
right?
and
When
it
when
is.
you want to be exclusively on top, there's no other word for it than
Yeah,
supremacy.
it is. It is the troublesome thing about the tone of this administration's second term. The first one, they were checked. This second one, it's full on, and
Well, they were checked because there were internal
right.
checkers. There were
Yeah,
people within the administration itself that said that's too far. You've gone too
yeah.
far. That's illegal. That's unconstitutional. Whatever.
Except now,
Doesn't
it seems.
exist now.
Well, if you are close to the administration, you have given them money, work for the administration, like Caroline Levitt works for the administration and had a little immigration problem with her brother-in-law. I mean, I mean, so they believe in special treatment. That is not a meritocracy, I don't think. I mean,
Well,
that is the opposite.
have you noticed? I've been watching her really carefully the last few days. I
Yeah.
think she's getting burned out, dude. I think she's gonna
Uh,
crack.
you don't stay in that job for long. You don't stay in
You
that job
know,
for long. And for many, a year is long. A year is long. And you
with,
know,
with this guy.
yeah.
Ooh,
Well, this year it's like dog years. She worked 7 in that one. She worked
yeah.
7 in the 11 months. And I have no sympathy. I mean, a human to human, I have sympathy for because she has to just lie for the biggest liar. And when the biggest liar lies all the time, you don't have time for the truth. Then I've
Yeah.
been a press secretary and I was with a good guy. He never lied. Not that I know of. But, this guy here lies, 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 and is
Well,
now
yeah.
people are saying it. Now, next, I think they're going to realize because everything has a racial component that you have to, acknowledge. He's going after these 19 countries. He's favoring South Africa. He's doing these things that are, the motivation is the United States demographically is becoming less and less white,
Yeah,
and
yeah. And I looked up the demographics at the university from which I retired,
mhm,
and currently, uh, whites are less than 35%.
mhm.
Latinos are the largest single group. They're not a majority, but they're the largest,
Like
single
45,
group.
45%.
40, about 40, yeah, somewhere around
Yeah.
43%. And I
And,
think the Asians are second with 41%.
yeah, and it really is more significant than people think to have brown on top and then Asians and then white. And we're blacks. We're African Americans.
I think they're somewhere less than 8%.
So they're still fourth, more than Native Americans. But when you look, and we're not playing a quota game, but you start seeing how the society breaks down, and at least you have to wonder, well, wow, everyone's a minority. There's a plurality of people here among the demographics. And how do you govern this? I mean, I think that's the challenge. How do we govern? How do we govern so it's fair? And because how do we govern so that the whites who are so nostalgic about, oh, we were on top, you know, and we want to preserve this white supremacy. I mean, that's why you're seeing Trump, being 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 seen with such affection by MAGA, even though MAGA is falling apart.
Yeah.
MAGA, I mean, it's not just Marjorie Taylor Greene, but MAGA is falling apart. And I didn't realize how, the Charlie Kirk thing caused rifts and divisions, and there's rifts and divisions between, Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes and other people, and it makes you wonder if Trump is lame duck. People may want a third Trump term just to keep Republican unity. I mean that's my fear. That's my fear that people say, "Oh, Trump's so peaceful compared to Tucker Carlson and Pete Fuentes and Candace Owens and Erica Kirk.
Oh.
We need Donald Trump a third term." I mean, will that be a justification?
Yeah, I really hope they try. I really do. I think the more that they look at extreme measures like that, just because it's indicative of their fear that they're not going to survive, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is a ridiculous fear, right? You remember when Watergate happened and everybody thought, man, Democrats are going to rule forever, right? They ruled for what? One term,
Boy,
one term. Carter was a one-term president. Okay.
Boy, the Republicans were forever. I remember when Clinton was elected. Oh my God, the Democrats were saying, "Oh my, we've been lived under the Bushes for so long. They were so excited." And then of course, Clinton, switched over back to Republican, and then when Obama was elected, oh my God. Oh, boy, we've turned the corner in America. We've turned the
Yeah,
corner.
race is no longer. Remember,
Yeah.
the conservatives
Yeah.
started saying, see, that proves
Post-racial.
we're not racist. That proves we're not racist.
Yeah, we're post-racial. Now,
Did you vote for
and
him?
then,
No,
huh?
but we're not racist.
But then look what happened after Obama. Oh man, we go to Trump.
Hey, when students in my class said, well, the argument has been made by my English professor that, this proves that we're beyond racism, American society. And I said, yeah, anybody in here believe that? And they all laughed. Okay.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, well, you ought to take that back to your English professor and let them know what we think. And, yeah.
Well, I just, and just looking at what I've seen in my lifetime and where we are now, and it goes back to that disparate impact idea. Can't even sue for discrimination. We have no discrimination, especially when the whites are going to be back in charge, back in control. Yeah, no one's going to be able to sue. But what are the things? I mean, if Donald Trump really is going at the end of this term as the lame duck,
I don't think he's going to make it. I don't think he's going to make it through the rest of the term. If you want something,
you
want
think
something really positive, yeah,
Right.
I think he's going to break. I think he's going to break. One of the things that we never talk about, we haven't talked about it in a long time, was there's inferences that his mental health, his capacity, right?
Oh yeah.
And it's not just the sleeping, right? It's
Right.
Him losing track, him actually being very heavily affected by ADD, right? Even ADHD, right? I mean, it's really clear. The guy's on the spectrum, man. Okay.
Oh
And
yeah.
so there's been an argument between the psychiatrists, right? Some say he's not mentally ill, right? His behavior is bad. The things that he does, we don't like, right? We think that they're inhumane, but that doesn't mean that he's crazy.
Right.
But there are a whole lot of people who say he is crazy.
All right. So when you say he's going to crack,
they cite malignant narcissism, right?
Yeah.
Which is, it doesn't sound that extreme, but it is one of the most extreme forms.
Yeah.
Okay. But one of the elements of all of these things, whether or not you actually think he is psychotic or at least, heavily neurotic in some ways, okay, that doesn't matter. What matters is the guy's sadistic as hell. You said these are all punitive things, right? Well, look at all of the stuff that his second in command. Some people are saying with this guy falling asleep and all that, who's really running the show? And they think it's Stephen Miller.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised by that. Trump, Trump. It's like whoever talks to him last, and he's being lobbied hard by the pro cannabis guys. He might. I mean, this might be, I don't know, seen as a positive or a negative, but he might be pro cannabis to the point of legalizing it or decriminalizing it federally and making it more open to medicinal use. But I was wondering, maybe he's a user. Maybe he's not asleep. Maybe he's not. Maybe he's just high. That would explain things. Maybe Obama. Maybe Trump is just high.
Yeah, it could other than grass, right? It doesn't have to be.
Yeah. Well, I just heard, or I was reading in
You know,
Axios. They're saying
yeah.
that he's
Well, we
going
got
to
to
be
look for
prone to being
other
open.
indicators, right? You know.
All right. So, all right. I don't know if he's going to last, but I'm just worried about all the stuff happening on the right. I want the right to be a good opponent for Democrats. And the right now seems to be kind of like losing its footing, losing its soul, if it had a soul. But so now, I guess the reason why we see so many different stories come up
Well,
every
Indiana.
week, there's something different. Indiana, yeah. Well, that was because
In, Indiana's
Donald
a
Trump
good
thought,
story. Good story.
yeah, yeah. I mean, what Donald Trump thought, oh,
Well,
let's just
he's
gerrymander
telling the whole
and
country.
Mhm.
Here's the
Right,
map. He's
let's
telling
just
the whole
gerrymander,
country. Here's the map. All of your
yeah,
states. The red states got to do this, right? And
yeah,
Indiana, which is one of the reddest of the red states, what their state legislature is 40-10, right? 40 to
yeah. They,
Republicans
they said,
to 10 Democrats, and 21 Republicans crossed the line, man,
yeah,
and
they said
constituted an
they said no.
overwhelming majority of people against the Trump map. Okay,
Yeah,
against the Trump
but but
map. It's
but
excellent,
still, all
excellent,
right.
real
If
conservative.
we play out all the math, Trump, if they do it in all the states that they are, you know, figuring, might challenge maps, even though the map should be challenged every 10 years. Now they're trying to do it every five, right? You're supposed to do it on the census. They're trying to do it every 5 years. And if they do it and do the math, the Republicans still win by 1 to 4 votes. So it's kind of worth it for them. But look at the upheaval. Look at the price to get
Well,
to that.
here's I stuck around and went to the web to find C-SPAN coverage
Mhm.
of the Indiana vote, and they didn't
Mhm.
have complete coverage. But what they did do was cite several speeches made by very conservative members of their legislature who were Trump
Mhm.
supporters. They voted for
Right.
Trump, and
And they
and they
still
came
probably
out and
will
said,
be.
"Yeah." They came out and said, "Look, this is really too disturbing to the stability of our constituents."
Yeah.
Because some of these things would be broken up so much that people would have difficulty understanding which they're voting for, where's their polling place, right? It
Yeah.
would get
Yeah.
that bad, right? one guy
Well, I
said
mean, yeah.
one guy said that a precinct might be as small as one block, right? The
Yeah.
way that they're trying to do.
Well, you're cutting up the districts, right? And
Yeah.
you're used to voting somewhere. I mean, you're not even, it seems like you're in a different county. Or
Yep.
you're in a different,
Exactly.
because all they're doing is trying to put the numbers so it works for the Republicans, which is not fair, but it's meddling, it's rigging. And what gets me, I read a quote from a legislator there, and he said, man, we should just let the voters here decide
That's
and
right.
stop with this meddling from the outside, which is exactly
They
the
actually,
reason.
actually,
Yeah.
virtually all of them said the same thing in that
Yeah.
regard.
Yeah. I
Specifically
mean,
said we got to do it state. We got to look at what our constituents need and want. That's it.
and and that's the way you find common ground. If you go with the voter, if you always go with the voters, you'll find some common ground in this gridlock mess that we're in. That let the voters decide, leave it up to them. I find that's one place to find common ground, and the other place to fight or find common ground is talking about the military and being for the troops. Maybe not for the war, but you're for the troops. that always is a way. That kind of patriotism, gives you
Yeah,
common
people,
ground.
but that's so shallow.
Well, but
If you're really for the truth, if you're really for the troops,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Now, I'm not saying the people don't mean it.
Mhm.
I'm saying they don't take it the next step. They don't go and look at what the actual policies and practices of government are.
Mhm.
Okay, that are supportive of veterans. Okay, they only do that when a bunch of veterans and some members of the legislature, okay, come out and hammer
Yeah.
because something really, really inhumane is happening to veterans. And one of those things is cutting back on their VA medical support.
Yeah.
And what kind of, they have the same kind of problem, or they did have the same kind of problems that ordinary citizens were having with their insurance companies refusing to cover even generic versions of certain drugs,
Yeah.
right?
And I imagine, I'm not sure, but I imagine the VA didn't escape the
The
budget
cuts,
cuts.
Doge, yep.
Yeah, the Doge
Yep,
cuts.
they were cut
Yeah.
heavily.
And
In that instance, it's about personnel,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. So
So here we go.
let's move into the affordability aspect, because
Mhm.
that's how my week started. I got a letter. I wrote this in my Inquirer.net column. I got a note from PG&E saying my utility bill is going up to $800 this month. $800. Usually our utility bills are half. I know it's been cold. We got this polar vortex, but my God, I mean, that was the first time I felt like the chill of the budget cut chill. I mean, all the other things, groceries. People are saying, "Hey, eat more beans if meat's going up." Well, that's all right. I love beans. I'm a vegan. I eat beans, but
Yeah.
but
What does it do for your gastrointestinal tract?
yeah. Well, I mean, good. I'm clean. I'm clean. But I mean, but the energy thing, that's high. Affordability, and then to call it a Democratic hoax, they have Donald Trump call it a Democratic hoax, that's a big lie.
Well,
And then we're not even.
one of the really genius things that he said was, "Well, my staff doesn't want me to call it hoax,
Yeah,
but
yeah. Well, it's not a
I'm
hoax.
going to do it anyway."
Yeah. And there he was the other day saying, "Hey, you don't need $37. It's Christmas. You don't need $37.
That's
Two, just
old,
two,
man.
just two,
That's old.
just two."
That started. He used that way back,
I
right
know,
in
within
February or
at the
something.
start of the year, but
He did that in pencils. Yeah.
he's still using it. He's still saying dolls. And the other night,
That's because that's what he can remember.
well, yeah, maybe.
That's what he can remember.
The other night
You
in
know. But
Pennsylvania, but here's the thing: we don't even get to the real issue, which is healthcare. And I had a friend say that her healthcare through ACA went up about $1,000, $1,200 a month. She's paying $14,000 a year extra for not quite as good healthcare, and this is all because of the failure of Congress to extend those ACA subsidies. So,
well, that's because the Republicans said we got a plan.
and there's no
Okay, and
plan.
their plan is, well, they advanced their own version
Oh
of
yeah,
a plan, and it was essentially a savings plan, right?
right.
You put
HSA.
you put money. We're going to put money into an account for you.
Yeah, yeah. We'll give you like $80, $100, and you go out and you pay your premiums with that.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, yep.
I think $80 a month will buy you an aspirin.
and,
And
and then if you're familiar with those kinds of plans, the problem is in the details,
yeah,
right? Because the neat thing about it, if you're an individual that had good medical insurance in the first place and you want to have money set aside so that you can predict if I'm probably going to have the same kind of year that I had last year. Okay,
mm-hmm.
so I'm going to put away X amount of money from my regular monthly or biweekly salary, or whatever it happens to be, right? And it's going to go into this account. The problem is you have to spend it in that year that you accumulated it.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
You remember that?
I don't like. You're talking about HSAs, right? No,
Yes.
I don't like HSAs.
Well, and that's what this is.
Yeah,
That's what they
yeah,
proposed.
I don't like HSAs because you can let them pile up, but what if you leave a job, or what if
Yeah, yeah, that's it.
you lose the HSA? What if uh, it's your spouse and your spouse dies? That's it. You got to use it or lose it. It doesn't seem fair, and
That's right.
it's not that fair, and it's not enough. So they got to match up their like for like. If they're going to say no
Well,
subsidies,
okay, let's cut to the chase, man.
yeah,
How serious are the Republicans, okay,
hmm
at really doing something about alleviating this problem for millions of Americans?
how serious are
How
they? They're
serious
not
can you
serious at
take that?
all. They're not serious at all.
That's not, that's just a game plan. I mean, geez. And
They're not serious at all.
did any of them think that a Democrat was going to cross the line and say, I like this, and vote for it? And it's
No,
crazy, man.
it's disheartening because now there are people who already are getting their new premiums, already their bills. You hear your new premiums, and it's shocking. And the person I'm citing here is probably not even the most extreme version, but
Yeah,
$1,000 extra a
yeah,
month for a plan that's not even as good. It's like
yeah.
a C plan versus the A plan that they had, but this is afforded. This is what they could afford. I mean, it's
There it
sad.
is. And there's a lot of people who are just going to not be able to afford it at all.
Yeah. And so this is right.
And that's going to be very interesting to see how that gets dealt with.
I mean, they're all going to be
You
like,
remember when the Republicans were saying that the Bernie Sanders and all of his suggestions of single payer and all that stuff,
mhm,
people are going to die.
yeah.
All you got to do is go to Canada, and you'll see people waiting in lines and not getting surgery on time, and then they die,
Well,
right?
yeah.
And then people in Canada said, "No,
Yeah,
that's not happening."
there's some
And it,
inconveniences. You may not get things exactly when you want them, but you're getting care, and it's so much better than what we have here. Single payer should be the way, or Medicare for all is what it was known by, but and we had a way. You sign up at work. The large networks of people would be work related, which would be great to have a large pool of workers employed. But who wins and who won that battle? The insurance companies, the healthcare
yeah,
companies.
the last time we were in Europe,
Yeah.
we said we spent time talking to our drivers and some of the guides,
Mhm.
as well as hotel personnel,
Mhm.
okay, and restaurant personnel,
Mhm.
and asked them how they felt about the tax rate and as well as their governmental services, particularly healthcare,
Mhm.
and they all had really positive stories, man. They all had positive stories, and I said, "Well, how long did it take him to get attention?" Oh, well, my brother broke his leg, and so yeah, I mean, right
Right
there, I
away,
mean, they
yeah.
got to take care of his leg. They set his leg and they put him in a cast and all that stuff. How about somebody with long term issues? Oh well, my mother, had issues, some pulmonary issues, and yeah, they couldn't get her in to a bed for about 3 days or
Yeah.
4 days, but
Yeah.
it didn't take long. And so they were looking at us like, why do you ask these questions?
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
And
the thing is,
I said, well,
it's all information, experience. And if you have someone who's biased and they're going to tell you, oh, Medicare for all, socialism, you're not going to
yeah,
get,
yeah, right away.
yeah,
That's all you had to do.
yeah, you're
That's what
not,
I was talking about with my fellow strikers
yeah,
from San Francisco
yeah,
State. Is how you guys feel about what Bernie's saying? And they said, well, and I said, they said, what do you think? And I said, all they're going to do is say it's
yeah,
socialism, and
yeah.
that's all. That stops the conversation.
Yeah.
That's all.
No, no,
And
no,
that's it.
no one
And they
wants
thought
that.
that would work on Mamdani.
Yeah.
They thought that would work on Mamdani. All we got to do is call him a
Yeah,
socialist, man.
yeah,
He's a communist.
funny. You say socialist and people turn off. If you say monarchy, they'll still vote for Trump. They'll say, Trump. I mean, the thing is,
How
you like the monarchy?
about if you say diseased monarchy?
Diseased monarchy. Yeah. Well, speaking of diseased monarchy, some more photographs came out, Epstein files, and you know, and
Oh,
this is the thing. We're
keep them above the belt.
thi-
Photographs above the belt,
yeah,
please.
this is everything is a distraction from the Epstein files,
Yeah. Yeah. Look
including
at all these Democrats.
yeah,
Look at all these people. Look at all these Democrats.
yeah. But the Democrats are releasing these files or the photographs, and I think they just want to make sure that people, understand the seriousness of this because it goes to the qualifications of the man who's currently serving and as our president. I mean, there are other things that you need to be concerned about. I guess this is why Trump brings up the Venezuela
Well,
thing.
but one of his first big denials, really firm, was I never went to the island.
Oh yeah, yeah, he said it.
Those other guys went to the island.
Yeah,
Okay. And then what we see is a dentist chair.
yeah,
It's among the pictures. And it's one of the first rooms.
yeah. But that's in that those are in the files. He still may not have gone. I don't know if he went to the island or not.
Yeah.
The pic,
I don't know either. I mean,
the pictures
it
are
might be somewhere. There might be something in the. See, I'm interested in the estate files.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
And right now there's a lawsuit again to get the grand jury,
right,
files, all those records. Okay. And that's a really limited process.
right.
And all a grand jury has to do is find that there's a preponderance of evidence likely to show that a crime may have been committed. It's a probable cause
And
standard.
but there's
It
still,
is not a conviction standard, right?
but
It's a probable cause standard. So there's going to be a limited amount of material. So I don't,
yeah.
people don't get it, man. They're just
Well,
there.
I think that as long as we're talking about it, that's good because we need to get to the bottom of Epstein, and now we've got the
Nah, it's a
Transparency
waste
Act.
of time. That is again sidetrack. So showtime. That's all.
Well, I
That's
mean,
nothing.
where we need to go with it is we need to see how deeply Donald Trump was involved. How do we get there?
Yeah.
How do we get to that?
Oh yeah. Well, but they're gonna. There's another. I think I can't remember which house, but I believe it's the House of Representatives. There's a Democrat who put forward, and he's asking for a subpoena.
Mhm.
Okay. Oh no, he's asking for an investigation as to why Bondi and Blanche are taking so long
Mhm.
to release these materials, and they want to know whether or not there have been redactions and removal of materials. Are there have these materials been affected in any way, right, because of their bias against anything that might show negatively, adversely towards the president of the United States? And that's a legitimate issue,
Yeah.
okay, because they've been holding on to this stuff for too long.
Yeah. Well, I want to see. I want to get to that bottom line answer. I don't know if we're going to get to that. In the meantime, we
Nah.
see nothing but distractions, and the key distraction right now, it's
Venezuela.
it's no longer China. We were going to allow the Nvidia chips to be sold to them. It's no longer Ukraine and Russia. I mean, it seems that's sort of it's still open, but the urgency is not Ukraine and Russia, but if Venezuela is a sovereign, I guess we're Russia when we bomb those boats. I guess
That's
when we
right.
bomb, and why are we bombing boats and why are we taking the tankers?
Because they're alleged drug runners.
Yeah,
Alleged.
right.
We've been provided no proof of that whatsoever.
Yeah,
Even though the Secretary of Defense, I refuse to call him the Secretary of War.
right.
Even though the Secretary of Defense has said and he was backed up by Admiral Bradley, right?
Yeah,
He was backed up. They both said that 11 people were identified. They know who those people were. Well, why don't they tell us that?
yeah.
Okay.
Well,
What is that? Just show us who they were and why you thought they were running drugs. That's
well,
it.
I think they want to keep this open as a distraction, and then Hegseth. I guess Hegseth could be in real trouble. I mean, I guess what would you rather be accused of, murder or a war crime?
The
Which is
one that he
worse?
would have to worry about is murder because that would be much faster to move on.
Yeah.
Okay. It would be much faster to be able to move on that. And it's a domestic crime, right? It's something that can be dealt with right here in the border of the United States. Is this was it an illegal act, and therefore was it tantamount to murder because he had the appropriate intent? I
Who
mean,
would
he could
charge
even.
you? Who would
Pardon me?
it would be a federal case?
Yeah, it'd be a federal case.
Federal case, so it'd be heard in Washington?
Yeah. It's where the defendant is present would be the case.
I see. And so, I mean,
So
that could be,
DC would have DC and maybe Maryland or Virginia would be alternate areas where you could bring the case because it's where the defendant is present.
because people are saying, well, it's not an act of war, so it can't be a war crime. Okay, so then it's just murder versus crime against humanity, which could go to the Hague. But
Right,
this,
right.
and that's where Duterte is. But murder, federal case,
Yeah,
that
well,
might
and the
that,
United States isn't on. They're not part of the ICJ. They're not part
right.
of the ICC. They're not signed up for that. They want to
So
avoid that.
so maybe murder's all all we got to bring some accountability. But they'll drag that out, and we'll need more Epstein photos to come out to counteract.
Nah, all of this stuff is sideshow. It's all sideshow, man.
To
The
what the
dangerous
sideshow?
thing is the dangerous thing is that it looks like he wants to invade Venezuela. Okay, and one of the indicators is the tanker, right? They
Yeah,
grabbed the tanker, and
grappling
and
down. Yeah,
and your friend Carolyn Levitt said, "Well,
my friend.
it's about drugs. Well, she's a press representative.
Yeah,
Yeah,
all right, all right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you
She's
know,
not my
you
friend, but
you're kissing cousins, man.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Caroline Levitt. Caroline Levitt. If she only had won in New Hampshire, she would be in politics and she wouldn't need to take this job. But now she's on the fast track to Dancing with the Stars. You know that she, she's she's on a fast track. Dancing with the Stars. That's her. Sean Spicer made it there. I mean, they're all gonna get there.
She's gonna
Only
love it.
Sarah
Yeah.
Huckabee. Sarah Huckabee made it as governor, and Arkansas,
Yeah,
I guess,
there you go.
deserves her. They deserve it.
Yeah, well, that's a Christian, white Christian nationalism right there.
Yeah.
WCN.
Yeah, I want to go on the record saying I taught poetry at a Christian school, and I did it because it's kind of I'm the poet laureate, and I want to show poetry as a form of or a tool of unity, not a division. And it was a Christian school, and it was a great experience. And I guess if you're a Christian and you want to go to a Christian
So, which
school,
poetry did you talk about and read?
I read, well, I had 6 classes. I read Casey at the Bat, which they loved. That was a good poem. Written by a guy, by the way, Thayer, who I read his bio. He went to Harvard. He was a member of the Lampoon. He was like really an inside, Harvard guy. I guess maybe that's Thayer Hall is Thayer. But Casey at the Bat is what he wrote. They love that. I read from Pablo Neruda's Book of Questions, the
Hmm.
poem where Pablo Neruda talks about Hitler. Like, what does Hitler do? How is Hitler serving?
Wow.
Very, very powerful because
What
I
what
had
grade was this, kids? What grade?
seventh and eighth, seventh
Oh,
and eighth.
that's good. That's good.
That's good. And I just found that it was a great class, great teacher. Once again, hard to generalize about, oh, this is always bad. I found it an interesting experience. I even I was ready to talk about Psalm 23 to these kids about how that's a poem, or the Our Father is a poem. It's
Yeah,
something
prayers,
we
prayers.
memorize.
Yeah.
So it was a great experience. And I think the more we have that kind of thing, I mean, the reason why, as a poet laureate, I wanted to do this is to show that we can have engagement and common ground over things like art, poetry, and that we can engage and we can exchange and have meaningful conversation and a kind of transformational sort of relationship with one another. Heightened humanity is what I call poetry. heightened language, heightened humanity, and it was interesting. So I used to not think so much of private Christian schools, but I had a good experience, and I'm going to be more open because of that. I'm going to be more open to things like the concept or the idea. I just wanted to share that with you. Also, I was essentially teaching six classes, and man, that's hard. 25 in the class. I know you lectured more.
Well,
I
no, but I
mean,
didn't. I did massive numbers,
yeah,
right? But only a couple of sections. When you
yeah,
have to do repeated sections, it's harder.
yeah. Oh, it was. Man, it was. I couldn't see doing that and then going home and correcting papers if I had to. Teaching. If you're a teacher out there, my hat off goes to you.
And
Tough job.
teach
Tough job.
well. How many times have we talked about this in the past? The teachers are among the most underappreciated, okay, of the professions. And
Yeah,
are they going to unprofessionalize teaching too? Just like they
yeah.
did with nursing and other medical professions.
Well, I hope not. I mean, I value teachers, and
Well, we sure don't show it.
yeah, I know, I
The only
know.
time they get any improvement is they got to go on strike.
Yeah, I value teachers and what they do,
The
and
public does too, because the
yeah,
parents come
yeah.
out. The parents say,
I know there were some parents there. There were a couple parents there, to assist. I thought it was great, but sometimes you forget. My kids are all out of school. Sometimes you forget what it was like. Most of the time, my wife went to
right.
to the classroom, and I didn't. But I just know that from the teaching experience from college, I taught. I taught college big classes at state, but when I was at St. Mary's, small classes, 15, and
Sure.
those were tough, um, because you can't rest in a class of 15. You know,
Well, you're open to more individual participation,
yes,
and they're
and
more open to individual participation.
yeah.
And then you notice who is not participating, and you try to engage them, and it takes more deliberation and energy.
That's what I noticed about yesterday. There's some teacher, or the teacher, the regular teacher, came up to me and said, "Oh, you got some people participating who ordinarily don't," and
Okay.
that was a real win. And then at the end of the sixth class, I just wanted to go home and go to sleep. It was really very tiring, but illuminating and fun and enjoyable. And
It
I hope,
sounds great. It sounds
yeah,
great.
I
Now, when
hope
I
the
say white Christian nationalism, I'm talking about a particular kind of mindset and a particular direction of actions. Okay,
right,
and
right,
white Christian nationalism is not good. Okay, the
yeah.
nationalism part is not good. The white
Yes,
part, it could be good, could be bad, it could be nothing. But when you put all those together, it means that people have an aggressive race-based agenda, right?
yeah.
That
What
is cloaked in Christianity.
what I will say this. I will say this. Uh, I think there needs to be ways that we can engage with those people, and to try to make them less of the thing that we find offensive. And usually in the public square, there's that the idea of debate, the idea of coming together and discussing, and maybe moving forward together. But we've lost that ability to do that. And so we do these. I try to do these little things so that I talk to the community, and I try to approach it in a different way, so that one thing I know is that if you don't talk politics and you talk in general about life which ultimately it becomes politics, because
Everything is
as
political.
as
Yeah.
someone says, culture, you know, is upstream from politics, right? It flows down, and it becomes a politics. So,
I, you
but
know,
it was,
po- po- culture is politics.
yeah.
It is
Well,
all politics. It's just that people don't want to recognize it as such. So the Ars Gracia artists, right? That you
Yeah.
can do art without being political. Come on, man.
Well, I know.
There's no
Hey,
way. They
well,
said,
that's
well,
what
look
you
at, Warhol, Campbell's soup,
and
Pimp
not
the
just
burger
Warhol.
sitting on a hamburger. How's that
Yeah.
political, right?
Yeah. Well, not just Warhol. Orwell. Orwell said he said that his prose was lifeless when it wasn't about had some kind of political. I hope I'm not misreading that. When his writing did not have that political verve or fight, that his prose was lifeless. And
Yeah,
anyway,
that's what I have. I do have problems with people so they're kind of acquaintances rather than friends, but who are artists and whose
mm,
art reflects entirely personal kinds of life view, right?
mm,
Um, it really is apolitical. I mean, I have a hard time looking at their art and then seeing anything that is political or intentionally reflective of social condition, right? Because once you start looking at social condition in any kind of expression, it's inherently political, right? Uh,
yeah, yeah.
but I honestly can say that I've seen people do art, and I really question that it has any value because it doesn't. It has no social content or political.
Ah, you mean my bowl of fruit should have more politics in it if I do a still life?
Yeah, to me, that has less value than something that showed the fruit
Even
decaying.
even if it was Trump orange,
Yeah,
in my still life.
even if it was subject to tariff and therefore 12% more expensive than it was last year.
Yeah, yeah. All right. One last topic. I bring this up because, we have an Asian American focus, and in San Francisco, we had a couple things come up. One is the trial of Visha Ratanapakdi.
Okay,
He's the Thai man, Thai American who was killed in Anza Vista in San Francisco, and the trial for his killer, right, is started. And I guess one of the big things is they're losing evidence, they're losing witnesses. Uh, it may be very difficult uh,
get a
to
conviction.
get a conviction or to properly sentence the man accused, Antoine Watson, who was 19 at the time, and now here he is. It's I don't know. It's We had a lot of difficulty during COVID when this was happening. It's 2025. The trial is continuing until mid January. What are some of your thoughts about this case? Because Visha Ratanapakdi really should be remembered as one of the first. He was the first man who died, right? During
Yeah,
that
January
period.
of
Yeah, that period of
2021. So we,
violence.
we were about a year into COVID at
Yeah,
that point. Well, recognized COVID,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Um,
And we're coming up to an anniversary, January, right?
it's very difficult to prosecute this kind of case without um, witnesses. And you said that they're losing witnesses. I haven't really paid close enough attention to it.
Yeah.
Um, he
Well,
was
that's one of the
Watson was
observations.
19 years old at the time,
Yeah.
and
So
prosecutors are arguing the attack was intentional and involved express malice, citing the assailant's alleged yelling and the act of returning to photograph the victim after the shove. Okay. Yeah.
it's just sad that we're seeing this now, almost 4 years later,
Well,
and people. It's a different time. We got an anti person of color kind of sentiment. Although I believe, um, I
that's
think the accused is African American. I think.
he is black.
Yeah. So I
Um,
just don't know how this case
he's
is gonna.
claiming. He's claiming. I think he's claiming a psych defense. Let me.
Mean,
Yeah, mental health.
oh,
Let's see. Stressful encounter with police earlier that day. Oh, okay. He was
uh,
upset over and argues that the case should be charged as involuntarily manslaughter rather than murder. That's a possibility. I think
they
you could
might,
get,
yeah.
yeah, you could get a conviction for sure on involuntary manslaughter, and it's almost as though they're copying to that, right?
Yeah.
If you're going to make that kind of argument, they're copying to it.
Well, if they have waited this long, I think
It's
maybe that's
definitely more a manslaughter issue than a murder issue.
yeah.
Second degree murder means you wanted real harm, and it wasn't intended to kill. You didn't intend to kill, but at the same time, that was the result. So if you intended serious harm and the result was a death, then second degree murder definitely is convictable, right? That's definitely not only
Yeah.
chargeable, but there's a good chance you can convict. But I think this is more like a manslaughter case. The guy came up and
Mm,
shoved an old man, right?
yeah.
He's not really thinking that the guy's going to go down and die, and
Although,
he probably didn't have the intent to kill.
yeah. Well, there's that word again, intent. And that's important. That's a factor. All right, I bring it up because I've been thinking about this guy off and on since the situation happened in 2021, and now we're coming up to what will be 5 year anniversary, January 28th, um, in a month or so, and now we have the trial. So I know who gets justice here. I guess that's the question.
Yeah, well, there is no justice for the family in real terms, right? Because
Yeah,
they've suffered their loss,
yeah.
um, and especially under the circumstances where the person uh, was uh, was just walking down the street.
Yeah. Well, they renamed a street that was on the path of Visha Ratanapakti's walk. They named the street for him. I guess that's something. To have a street named for you in San Francisco kind of immortalizes you somewhat until someone says, "Hey, we need to name this street for someone else." Uh,
Yeah,
like, do they still call They don't call Embarcadero Herb Cain Way anymore, do they?
I don't know, but they should. I mean,
Oh,
why
well, they
not?
did at one point when he
Well,
really
I know,
passed.
but yeah, they should make it permanent. I think.
I mean,
And,
I think they.
I disagreed with him on a lot of stuff, but he was always very complimentary towards Filipinos specifically.
Well, all right. I think Herb Cain was important for his time, but man, it's funny how newspapers have just fallen off the cliff since Herb Cain's passing. They
Yeah,
were and they were important. He was big. For those who don't know, he was a big columnist in San Francisco, more known for gossip than for his newsy write-ups. Or he wasn't like a Jimmy Breslin type, or um, a Pete Hamill type, New York columnist. He was more of uh, Rona Barrett. What are the Walter
he was.
Walter
Yeah,
Winchell?
he was a slice of life guy too. Just
Yeah,
walking down the street and making observations about things happening in the city, and
yeah,
he would comment about how things had changed in terms of customs and clothing.
yeah,
How the culture had changed downtown. I remember when he was saying people used to dress up to go downtown, and now,
yeah.
they're wearing sweats and jeans.
Yeah,
And
well, he came from a time when people wore hats. You remember when the Filipinos all
sure,
wore hats,
sure, my
and
dad
now
had
now,
a few
yeah,
hats.
yeah. My dad always wore hats and always wore suits. Even though he was a cook, he still wore hats and suits, and that was the uniform. And now, man, now who wears a tie these days, right?
Right,
Who
right.
do dresses up? Anyway, I didn't want to get onto a thing about Herb Cain, but
All
um,
right. Anyway, so
yeah. Anyway,
what?
so
Oh, we should mention there
yeah,
there are demonstrations right now in
yeah,
Alameda, and there are also planned demonstrations here on the Embarcadero on Herb Cain Way in San Francisco.
Yeah.
People don't want to call it Justin Herman Plaza, so we should just call it maybe Herb Cain Plaza. But
So what's a protest for?
because ICE people and Border Patrol have been allegedly deployed, and they're in at the Coast Guard station in Alameda
Oh,
right
again, yeah,
now, and
yeah.
there's a protest there. They definitely are present, and so there's a belief that they're going to be deployed to San Francisco, and that's why people are gathering on the Embarcadero.
Wow. So
There are people going to be resisting, and
yeah.
I've got whistles myself.
Well,
So
this is something. I mean, this is how you show the resistance. This is how you stand up. Um, I know that some people were hurt the last time, right? There was
yeah,
when Trump threatened it and then he didn't.
yeah.
So,
We get some of our fish, our seafood,
mhm,
at a market on 23rd and Mission. And
yeah.
while I was looking for parking, I saw a black SUV go by, and the guy was looking at a particular individual that was across the street from the SUV, but it was on my side of the street,
Mhm,
and I couldn't tell because I couldn't see an arm patch whether or not this person was local cop or ICE, and I
mhm,
think he was ICE.
mhm.
I think he was a scout. There, I didn't see other SUVs in the area,
Yeah.
but I definitely was suspicious of this one SUV and that particular agent or officer.
Well, I just think there's a lot of people who work for ICE who aren't as qualified, aren't well trained. You're seeing a lot of mistakes. They won't call it mistakes, but what else can they be? They're misidentifying people. They're sending people to detention who may not deserve detention. There's this one guy, you know about the case of Kuya G up in Seattle. There's a guy who, he's been here for decades, and he married a U.S. citizen, has kids. He was picked up. He's a green card holder, but for some reason, they detained him. He had some medical issues. He lost, I think, part of a foot or a toe, was amputated, and then they were going to deport him the other day, and then because of activists, lawyers coming in to save him at the last minute, they practically took him off the plane, and he's staying in custody. They got a temporary restraining order to prevent ICE from deporting him. So this is the thing: if you are lucky to get justice, lucky to have, um, a whole team of activist lawyers on your behalf, because they are community activists, and they take the most egregious cases, or you have money. Maybe you have money and you can buy the best defense you can
I think
get.
what we need to do is we need to warn everybody, and especially those people who are a little resistant to understanding how sweeping
Mhm.
these behaviors are and how violent they can get very quickly.
Yeah.
They can really get seriously violent, and we need to warn people. We're going to be shopping on Mission Street because once again we get seafood and we bring those to a large family gathering out
Mhm.
of town.
Mhm.
But they got the best seafood, and we have a particular fondness for oysters, particularly particularly Royal Miyagi's. Those are just really excellent.
Yeah.
They have the flavorful character of smaller oysters, but they
Mhm.
are more substantive. Okay, in both size and measure of meat,
Well,
right?
Dan, certainly you will get your fill of mercury, and
Uh,
that.
you know what's worse is mussels. So you gotta,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
muscles. Yeah,
muscles
yeah.
is worse
Muscles
in
had
terms of
muscles.
mercury and all that stuff. Because they're
Muscles
okay.
had a
Anyway, the
run.
point. So
Yeah,
we go there, we get our seafood, we get our cod and
yeah,
our crab
yeah.
there, lobsters occasionally, and so I'm going to bring a copy of my passport as well as obviously my California Real ID.
Man,
Um,
that is a thing. When I went to Canada, I got into the habit of carrying my passport at all times. Once I did, I thought, hey, this isn't a bad idea all the time, even though I have real ID. I have real
I
ID.
got a Real ID too. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but it isn't a bad idea to always carry your passport.
Yep.
But it's funny.
When you're brown, see, somebody was wishing us, well wishing us, and saying, "Are you guys going to be able to travel? During the break, during the holidays?"
Yeah,
And I said, "Well, I'd like to. We'd like to, but I'm brown, and my last name is Gonzalez.
yeah.
You know,
Elion Gonzalez, right?
yeah, yeah. Oh, I remember that
That's a while ago. Well,
young
look,
kid.
I think Canada was no problem, but there may be some problems if you come into the bigger airports like
Yeah,
SFO. So I mean, Canada, you check in right there at Canada before you board your flight, and so I didn't get the most the vigorous, most aggressive ice folks looking at me, but. Yeah, you got to think about that here in the United States. Okay, all right. Look, Dan, I let's wrap this up. I thank you for talking about stuff. Um, I am going to do my show. I'll talk about this while you're on with me. I'm doing the show on Monday about Christmas.
yeah, yeah.
I'm telling Christmas stories.
What time does
It,
that start? What time does it
it,
start?
7 o'clock at the Marsh, 1062 Valencia Street in San Francisco on Monday. It's part of the Monday Night Marsh series. I'm one of a couple of artists telling stories. So it'll be me. I think I'll be kicking it off, talking about Christmas, talking about the special gift I got this Christmas from my brother-in-law. Who uh, I won't give away too much, but I'm going to talk about what that has helped me realize about Christmas. And so,
Uh,
it's
I
a
know about your brother-in-law, and so
yeah.
I won't give it away.
Yeah,
Just to
well,
say,
I didn't want to mention it, but I'm it's not going to be I mean it's sort of like my it's a wonderful life kind of thing, right?
yeah,
And it's about how you go over stuff and you realize, you're you know, it's a there but for fortune moment, right?
yes,
Sometimes these things happen. So um, that's
definitely.
Monday, 7 o'clock, 1062 Valencia Street in San Francisco. The Monday Night Marsh. You can go to themarsh.org and find out more, or just show up, buy a ticket. And then also, if you go to my website at amok.com, I put up some information about where I'm doing my show, 69 Emil Amok in January on Potrero Hill, the SF Playground group. They've got a great theater up there on Potrero Hill. I'm going to be there, and it's weird because it's free, but with donation.
Okay.
And if you say, "Well, what's a donation?" Well, we suggest it. We suggest a donation. So free with donation. So go to amok.com and
And
then click
the
the link there.
suggested donation is way under $100. So
Way under $100,000. Way under 100,000. It's just a suggestion. Just a suggestion. You don't have to pay a hundred
that's
thousand,
right.
but we'll put it in your mind because we know how suggestion
Well,
works.
you got to think about it. It's a better gig than freeware. It's
Oh
better
yeah,
than
yeah,
freeware.
yeah. And then I just do comedy in February at the same place, um, at SF Playground. So January and February that's spoken for, and I'm doing some other things hopefully during the year. But next year, big year, election year.
Yep, it's a big
midterms,
year. It's going to be
midterms.
active. It's going to be
Yep.
very active. I'm going to
Yep.
try and get people out. I'm starting to do the organizing already. I started actually before Thanksgiving.
Oh,
So,
that's good. That's good. That's good. All right.
yep.
All right. All right, Dan.
All
All
right.
right. Look, have a great weekend. Get your,
Thank you
well, I
very
know.
much. Hug
Enjoy
to
your weekend, and
Kathy.
also thank you for the tip on people are assembling now on the
Yep.
Embarcadero, because that's important to show
There
that
is going to
kind of
be
force.
resistance. It's going to
Yeah.
be interesting to see how Lurie and the office of the district attorney
Hmm.
handle ICE, because if ICE or the Border Patrol misbehave, and I mean by being overly physical
Hmm.
and using uh, irrational use of force,
Hmm.
unreasonable use of force,
Hmm.
you know, Brooke Jenkins said she could go ahead and enforce the law against them. And
Well, she should. I think she should. I mean,
well, yeah,
that
but are
was a
the
whole.
cops going to play? Are the individual officers and their supervisors on the ground going to play? That's what it comes down to. I
Well,
think a lot of officers would be willing to stop ICE. Uh,
I think if they are true believers in the Constitution and the rule of law, everyone stays
yeah,
in their lane. That was not just a sense of, not my job, but it was a sense of following the law. The laws are the law, right? The law paints the lines. It's not, a subjective line painting. There
yeah,
are laws that say
yeah,
you're fed, I'm state, I'm local, and we do our jobs. We don't cross the line. That's the
yeah.
rule of law. So, all right, Dan, thank you very much. There he goes, my friend,
Peace to
professor of
all.
ethnic
Love to
studies,
all.
Asian American studies, Daniel Phil Gonzalez, College of Ethnic Studies, San Francisco State University. Thank you, Dan. I was like, if you just get up and talk, it just it doesn't beat seeing him in person. I had a good time with him at the library, San Francisco Public Library, a couple of months ago. And we're going to do it again. We're going to do it again because the library said, "Hey, we had a good time. Let's do it again." And we're going to do it, and we're prepared this time because I bought some lights so that you can see us. So that we don't have to look like silhouettes. I got some lights. And I still have the tape. I just had a system where I couldn't take it. Had to get something to take it off my phone into another instrument, and I'm gonna get that out. And we're gonna put it on the podcast. Really, we're gonna put it on the podcast. Really. All right. All right. Once again, Monday Night Marsh coming up December. Let's see, 12, 13, 14, 15th, December 15th. SF Marsh, 1062 Valencia Street in San Francisco. I'm going to tell the story of my first Christmas tree and why this is a special Christmas for me. It is a special Christmas for me. And I'm also going to talk about my Jewish mother. Uh, they say if your mother's Jewish, you're all Jewish, but Emil Guillermo Berg, I don't know, maybe, I don't know. So there's something for everybody, something for everybody when I do my Christmas stories at the Monday Night Marsh in San Francisco, 1062 Valencia Street. So go get them. Well, you can buy tickets at the door or go to themarsh.org. Check it out. So we end our show. We like to end our show with a little meditation. And so, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Till next time, Mahal